began my personal quest with the death of someone very close, who'd always been there, and then suddenly wasn't. Through family, friends, and just ordinary people, I became aware of non-traditional ways of becoming stronger in mind, body, and spirit. So, like many others, I began to ask the questions that have been with us from the beginning. And what I'm starting to learn is that the energy of the new spirituality comes not from the struggle to believe, but from the search for authentic experience. And that's what this series, Age of E, is all about. If you thought spas were places for massage, a chance to relax, get fit, or de-stress, you may only have half the picture. The resort we visited offers more than just steam rooms, whirlpools, saunas, and tennis courts. White Oaks Resort at Niagara-on-the-Lake has Reiki, hot rocks, shiatsu, and something called Austrian Moor mud wrap. Boy, was I in for a treat. In your own opinion, what is the difference between, say, a health retreat and a spa?
I think health retreat is a word really that was coined way back in England. They were called health farms back then. And they were mainly where people went specifically for a purpose, and that purpose usually was to spend a week, lose weight, get back to some sort of normal form of good eating habits and exercise. Nowadays, spas are developing where everybody can feel that they can go, not just for a week, but for a day, have an experience. And in that experience, be educated enough to take some of that home with you and utilize it in your everyday life. And that's what I see spas becoming, very, very sort of mainstay where everybody's going to be able to use them. And it's not just for the rich or famous anymore.
Have you found a real change in the way that spas have grown over the years?
Oh, absolutely. There's been a massive increase in the number of spas, not only from destination spas like we have here, but from just hotels putting in spas. 10 years ago, we may have called a hotel and wanted to know if they had an indoor pool. 5 years later, do you have an exercise room? Now it's, do you have a spa? The individual is demanding that stress relief. They need it. Everybody's working much harder nowadays.
Massage has been around for as long as there have been sore, aching muscles and joints. From Swedish massage to shiatsu and rolfing, reflexology, and Reiki. I got a hands-on tour when I visited the spa at White Oaks Conference Resort.
Lois, I'm going to be doing a hot stone massage on you today, and we're going to be incorporating basalt stones. And these are stones that have a very high density, so they maintain the heat. And we are going to be placing 16 stones along the spine.
Is this going to hurt?
No, this feels wonderful. Actually, the stones will amalgamate into your spine and feel very, very comforting.
Oh. Now, what kind of treatments is this massage used for? I mean, what kind of ailments, or is it just for comfort?
Well, it's for general relaxation. We don't have any very specific treatments. Don't lay down yet. I'm just going to...
They're a little bit hot.
Yeah. This is very good for arthritic conditions, and you can come back down slowly.
Oh, well, I have a little bit of a bad back, so this would probably be right up my alley.
Yes, definitely. Now, how do they feel on your spine?
Really comfortable, actually.
Very comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay. Lois, I'm going to be placing some stones on the energy centers on the front of the body. There will be 5 stones starting at the sacrum and will be placed right between the chest area. So I'm going to have you concentrate on your breathing. Okay. And on your exhale breath, I will be placing stones on the front of you. Okay?
Feels really good. And how long do you leave the stones on the front?
Until we turn you over.
And what's the history behind this, Heather?
Well, it's an American Indian type of treatment, and they utilize the heat from the stones to help, again, to relax the muscles. So actually a lady from Arizona started developing it, a massage therapist, and using them in her massage. I'm starting off using my hands to apply the oil, and then I will be incorporating the stones, different size and shaped stones to be used on the area.
I suppose I'll want to go to sleep after this. It already feels terrific. How long does it usually take to heat up the stones?
Usually it takes approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and the temperature, we keep it at 150 degrees, and this we find is very comfortable to the body, and is also, I'm able to use them and hold them in my hands.
It is very non-invasive as well. It's not a deep tissue at all. So I suppose people that are sensitive to deep tissue massage would more than likely prefer this.
Yes, most definitely. And they also get the benefits because of the heat that's being used.
And how many stones in total are used in one of these?
There are 54 stones. And again, all different shapes and sizes to be used on the different areas of the body. And the different thicknesses of the stones will maintain more heat. So on smaller areas of the body, we will use smaller stones, therefore not to burn the skin and to work the smaller muscles of the area.
It feels fabulous. What do you find that the benefits are from this type of massage, Heather?
Well, with the use of the heat, I find that it entails deep relaxation. We are also getting the massage utilizing or maneuvering the muscles. We are enabling to relax the person and to better promote health.
Right. And I suppose this would release toxins as well?
Yes, yes. Through any type of massage, you are going to be releasing toxins through the body.
Right.
Do you think White Oaks answers a spiritual need?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Spa services now are just not physical services. Again, we have to take into that mind-body-spirit connection. We can do that in many ways. We use energy work a lot in our treatments, and energy work deals with that person's energy that surrounds her. It's like me sitting, I'm in your space and you're in mine, and we're connecting very well. But on the contrary, we could be sitting with someone we don't connect, and that's all to do with energy sharing. So in the spa, we really try and coach all our staff to be able to be aware of that connection every time they do a treatment. So we do a lot of energy work with every treatment that we do. Again, the guided visualization techniques that we use in the meditation room, that is part of a whole mind-body connection to try and get that person to sort of relax and get out of herself a little and take that journey along to relaxation. So we utilize things like that for that mind-body connection.
About 7 months ago, I noticed that I was getting really liney around the eyes. So I went to see Janelle Moldner about some microdermabrasion. After about 7 treatments, I must admit, the results have been amazing.
Microdermabrasion is a progressive treatment rather than aggressive. It's a treatment that you can have every 7 days, and it will get rid of acne scarring, hyperpigmentation, fine lines, Melasma. How the process of microdermabrasion is with aluminum oxide and suction, you do a deep exfoliation. By doing this deep exfoliation, you signal the brain that there's a wound. It's a microscopic wound, so nobody can see it. Then the brain kicks in just like it was a major wound, and your cells turn over in half the time they normally turn over while you're in a session.
Now, what is the microdermabrator?
Microdermabrator is the machine, and that is clean crystals flowing through the handpiece, hitting the skin, actually sanding the skin, and suction, which is causing erythema and pulling the used crystals back through to be disposed of.
What type of crystals are they?
These are aluminum oxide crystals, which are considered completely inert and 99.9% pure. And what this is, it's aluminum oxide sounds kind of scary, but it actually isn't. These are crystals that are, on a Mohs scale, are 9. They're the next hardest mineral next to a diamond. So they don't gas or liquefy or absorb into the skin.
Now, how many treatments should a person have?
Well, Lois, because you're just simply flawless, minimum. But I would say average 12 treatments. And usually people don't really notice a difference. They can't see the difference. They feel the difference right after the first treatment. But after the 6th treatment is the magic number. And it also depends on how deep whatever we're working on is, because the machine works with your body. As your cells start to turn over faster, your skin's growing up, and every 7 days we go in and level it again.
Now, my favorite part of this entire treatment is coming up.
Yes, the mask.
And what's the importance of the mask?
Well, you know, a lot of people do microdermabrasion and slap some sunscreen on and send the people home. But you have actually, or I have, removed your stratum corneum, which is a layer of your epidermis that keeps products from penetrating. So now that we've removed that, whatever I put on your face will actually penetrate much better.
Right.
And then I put a mask on it to force an occlusive mask, which forces penetration.
Janelle, how does this compare to other types of facial rejuvenation?
You can't really compare it to laser because laser is much deeper. Laser has a huge downtime and often doesn't have that great of results. To be dermabrated is a wire wheel and requires anesthesia. It's basically grind off your face. And all the other available techniques are chemicals, and chemicals have to be neutralized, and you can't, once you put a chemical on your skin, you can't 100% control what that chemical is doing. So this is actually the only benign treatment.
What type of people normally come in for the treatments?
It's across the board. Men are really starting to come in now.
Men, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
And acne sufferers. It's so wonderful for acne because you can get off all the drugs. It brings everything to the surface. And not only are you getting rid of the acne, but you're working on the scars at the same time.
Wow.
So I can't say enough of that. Actually, I have a client who has a machine, and she's treating somebody I sent to her. He had been in a helicopter accident. The rear sail blew, and he was completely torched. He had 9 operations on his hands where his skin was grafted. Where the grafting was, they actually remade each finger. Had huge ridges, and she was able to get rid of all the ridges.
Wow. So it's good for burns as well.
Yeah, and scarring. Okay, Lois, I'm going to let your masks dry, let you relax, and then I'll be back.
Thanks, Janelle.
You're welcome. How's your skin feel, Lois?
It's tingling a little bit, actually.
Perfect. Will feel like a windburn.
Well, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, but I suppose that's because I've already had a few treatments. But I must admit, going back to the first time I had a treatment, it was a little bit burny right afterwards. But I suppose the more treatments that you have, the less uncomfortable it becomes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Since Dolores Krieger and Dora Poons developed therapeutic touch, it has been practiced by nurses in hospitals across the continent. Derived in part from the healing practice of laying on of hands, this healing art is being widely accepted. even though at first glance it appears that not much is going on. Practitioner Janet Fillets explains.
It was developed by Dolores Krieger, who was a professor of nursing at the New York University, and Dora Kunz, who was a clairvoyant and a natural healer. And the two of them observed other healers in the process of what they were doing. Krieger thought that she could learn how to do this. The healer that they were watching at the time said, no, it's a gift, you have to be born with it. But she disagreed, and she, being a very clinical person, broke it down into some basic steps and decided that when she saw the benefits that people were deriving from this type of therapy, that this would be a good thing for nurses to learn.
What exactly is therapeutic touch?
It's a complementary therapy in which I'm manipulating a person's energy field, which is the energy emanating from the surface of their body, to relieve blockages or any imbalance, any asymmetry, so that it is smoothly flowing, and this would enable them to heal themselves.
What has been the reaction from the doctors around the hospital?
Some of them are still like, this is just too hokey. But the doctors who have seen the effects, because it doesn't have to be ordered by a doctor, the nurses can request it for a patient, and then if the patient is in agreement, we give them treatment, and then they see the benefit. And the patients are the ones that are educating the doctors. It's nice to see you again.
When I was in the car accident, I hit my chin on the steering wheel, which forced my jaw back in and caused considerable damage to the joints on each side. Multiple surgeries tried to help me. I have new joints on each side right now, actually, and a lot of medication. I had to make the decision to take these the rest of my life or find another alternative.
We always work from a compassionate center, like right from the heart, unconditional love, acceptance.
I can just feel the pain and the stress moving from my body as she does it. I've been through multiple surgeries since I've come to therapeutic touch, and it always has allowed me to heal quicker with a lot less pain.
In the clinic, we have cancer patients, we have patients with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, arthritis, headaches, multiple sclerosis, chronic back pain. There's no end, there's no limit to what you can treat with therapeutic touch. Therapeutic touch does not cure anything. We can't do that to rid somebody of a disease process, but if they can let go and focus on healing, then marvelous things do happen. But I'm not implying that therapeutic touch is going to make cancer go away.
How can a treatment where you don't put your hands on the patient actually work?
Because we're working with the energy field, and the energy field is an energetic manifestation of what's going on physically within the body.
Can anyone learn how to do therapeutic touch?
Anyone can learn, and we teach families and patients to work on themselves or to work on a family member. Let me show you. Just hold your hands up. And this is a preliminary hand exercise that we use in the level 1 class. And just focus your attention on the skin surface of the palms of your hands and your fingertips. And just have them not quite touching. And just focus for a moment. And then I want you to just take your hands apart a couple of inches. And then very slowly bring them back together.
I feel a lot of heat.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, almost like a magnetic sort of connection.
Now, magnetic as in pulling together or repelling?
Both.
Both, okay.
Yeah.
What you're feeling is your own ball of energy there from your hands, and you're just sort of building it up. And that's the type of energy that you will feel things like you could take your hand and move it. We're working in the etheric field, so it's 2 to 6 inches above the surface of the skin.
Do you feel that this is a spiritual work?
Very much so. And it's not attached to any religious concepts at all. We talk about the universal energy field. Everyone has a concept of a higher power. If you actually believe in that, the people who don't believe in it won't be here for therapeutic touch.
Like many healers, Allison Clark first discovered her talent after a health crisis of her own. She practices reflexology, the ancient and well-respected art of foot massage. I was willing to offer up my feet to her gentle and knowledgeable hands.
I choose the feet because the feet are a part of our body that we pay very little attention to. We're on them all the time. They get such abuse. The very act of having somebody work on your feet says something to your body. So you're starting the healing process just by doing that. Working into the feet helps to relax. It would be like having a massage on your body. You're helping the muscles to relax, so that's another way it works. And then when you're working on the specific reflexes, you're sending a message to that area of the corresponding organ. There's written signs of reflexology with the Egyptians, in India, in China. So it's been around a long time. It predates acupressure and acupuncture. And reflexology itself, as a map of the feet, where there's reflexes that correspond to different parts of the body. It was about 75 years ago that started in North America. There was a woman called Eunice Ingham, and she came up with the map of the feet, and that's the basis of what's used today.
Can you show us exactly which reflex points in the foot correlate with the different organs?
The top of the foot, the toes, and the big toe and the smaller toes, that relates to the head area of the body. In the big toe, there's the brain and other the glands and organs in the brain. The smaller toes are eyes, ears, and sinus, the area where you're finding a lot of pain, the sinus. Down from the head, there's the neck reflex and the shoulder. Down from that is the chest area. Then, as it would be in the body, you go down further, and it's the diaphragm, the solar plexus, right in the middle. Down from there is the stomach, pancreas. On this side, there's the spleen, and kidneys are in the middle, just as it would be on the body. And then down further is the lower intestines, large intestine and the small intestine. Down the side of the foot is the spine, and down this side is the arm-leg reflex. And then on the top of the foot, this is the chest, breast, thoracic reflex. And down the bottom of the foot is the pelvic region down here. So that kind of gives just a general overview of what reflexes are where.
Allison, what can you tell about a person when you're giving them a treatment?
You can tell a lot by just looking at the foot. Where there's calluses, sometimes that can indicate an area where the energy is not flowing in the foot. For example, if there's a lot of calluses on the sinus reflex, which is the fleshy part of the toe, then very often it's a good indication to me that that person is dealing with sinus congestion. I look at the color of the feet and what's going on. If I press the foot, does the color go or does it stay white? And all that tells me what's going on circulation-wise, what kind of conditions the person might be dealing with. When I start working on the foot, the level of flexibility to the foot tells me what kind of flexibility the body might have. And then when I start working into the reflexes, I can feel a number of different things. I can feel a crunchy sensation, and that's a buildup of within that reflex. I can sometimes feel a hollow feeling, or there can be a swelled feeling. There might be a little bit of heat to an area. All of those things are indicative to me, and the person might be feeling pain. That's probably one of the first ones, but all of those are indicative to me of what might be going on within that person's body.
Do you see yourself as a healer?
I would like to think so. But we all heal our own bodies. I cannot heal anybody. What I can do is help bring somebody more towards a state where they can heal themselves on a physical level, on a mental level, an emotional level, and even a spiritual level. Because I find reflexology works on all of those levels.
Oh.
Okay, we're finished.
Already? Oh, that was pretty good, actually. They
known as the publisher of the alternative medicine guidebooks, watched his mother and sister die difficult deaths from cancer. These experiences galvanized him to find those physicians who were successful at reversing this dreaded disease.
In alternative medicine, the treatments vary, but it's essentially a system of detoxifying the body, taking away what caused the cancer in the first place, pesticides and herbicides. And we have much research that confirms this. For instance, in the Connecticut General Hospital, they took cancerous tumors, split them in half, called a split biopsy. Half went to pathology, the other half to toxicology. Inside the tumor, they found arsenic, chlordane, DDT, PCBs. To prevent cancer, there's a number of things you must do. Pesticides and herbicides are on our vegetables and are into our beef. So we have to have organically grown vegetables. And we can grow organically grown vegetables for less money than conventional vegetables with pesticides and herbicides, contrary to popular belief. It is imperative that if we can't afford to get organically grown, or if it's not available, that we wash our vegetables in grapefruit seed extract that can be gotten from a health food store. Another key to cancer prevention is bowel movements. Now, this is something a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it is essential. If you don't have 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, you're going to be toxic, and you can have a tremendous amount of allergies, and it could lead to the immune system not functioning as it should. Emotions play an enormous role. If a woman sees her man out with another woman and she says, "I can die," she's on her way to die, because it affects the immune system enormously. There are many, many studies showing how the immune system gets deprecated by negative emotion. The holistic physicians in my book, there's 37 of them, successfully reversed most cancer, as much as 80%, those that are competent in the field. And you've got to shop a doctor as a used car with great caution. Not all doctors can say and do what they say they can. Ask the patients. Doctor, I want to talk to your patients. Ask them. And if you want to find a good physician, you might go to a health food store, because they have their ear to the ground. They know what's going on. Today, 45% of the North American population uses some form of alternative medicine, and it's climbing exponentially. Why? Because it works. The system is completely different, and by feeding the body absorbable nutrients, the public is seeing results. For arthritis, there are substances you can take for arthritis that feeds the body what it's deficient in, like oils, flaxseed oil, and primrose oil, borage oil. And there are substances, oswellin, an Indian herb, that takes away swelling, and chondroitin and sulfate, which helps build bones. So all this stuff is coming to the public's attention through books and through education.
Burton, why are supplements so important?
It's imperative for us to supplement with nutritional supplements like vitamin C and vitamin A and amino acids and substances, because our food's denuded. The farmers throw chemicals at the crop. The corn looks beautiful, but what's missing is 1 part per million of selenium, molybdenum, chromium, so minerals need to be supplemented as well. We're really starving to death in a land of plenty.
Do you think the government should regulate the use of supplements?
I would like to see the government as far away from supplements as possible. There's a tremendous amount of pressure by the pharmaceutical industry to curb and to make supplements prescriptions, which would take them and create a price increase that would be impossible for people to afford them. There's over 100,000 deaths a year in North America from the side effects of prescribed drugs. And there's hardly any deaths whatsoever from the use of nutrients. And nutrients can do the same job in many, many cases. Now, when it comes to the emergency room, you can't beat mainstream medicine. Trauma, injuries, they're the best. The mind, the body, and the spirit all has to be addressed. And that's where conventional medicine misses the mark. All they know how to do is drug you, or cut it out, or burn. In order to stay alive in the 21st century, we must drink lots of pure water. It's imperative that we filter our drinking and our shower water. We must have organically grown beef and chicken. And I love drinking water because it detoxifies the body. And that is the secret in the 21st century. Get rid of the poisons that are coming in from the air, food, and water.
Martine Lemie is a ballerina who performs with the National Ballet of Canada. This beautiful and hard-working dancer has made it her business to explore the mind-body-spirit connection as a way of helping her heal the many injuries which are an unfortunate but unavoidable part of her job.
I had a scare about 5-6 years ago with a hip problem. It was getting tighter and tighter and more aggravated, and it came to a point where I could hardly do an arabesque, and I thought I was going to have to quit. I didn't know what was going on. Went to a doctor. They did a bone scan and found out that it could be arthritis. And I freaked. I was way too young for my career to stop. Remember just crying and crying and crying and again, just realizing, choosing not to be a victim, but at the same time having to see what I felt brought me to this point. I had a whole bunch of emotional issues that I dealt with and learned everything I could about arthritis and just started to do my visualization work. Just said, okay, this is a problem, I'm going to heal this. A few days later, a week later, I had an MRI. A day before the MRI, I started to feel there was relief. And then the day of the MRI, the pain had gone. Went to the MRI and it showed nothing. It was perfectly clean. The doctor couldn't believe it. So it's one of those little miracles that I choose to believe that the universe gives us the power to heal when we choose to.
And how did you become interested in holistic practices?
I did yoga with my mom when I was 6-7 years old, and I loved that. And then we went into transcendental meditation when I was only 10 years old. But I remember at the ballet school I was interested in the whole new age thing, rebirthing I did, and acupuncture. And eventually I got into finding out, about the shiatsu and about different treatments that are available.
Right now I'm trying to stimulate a point that is really good to relieve all the tension in the neck and shoulder area.
I do acupuncture. I've found it really beneficial. When I have a drastic problem, I just call my acupuncturist and go, and he's usually able to relieve it almost immediately within that hour.
What kind of help is generally offered with regards to Western medicine to other ballerinas?
Well, I would consider surgery Western medicine. I think it can get to that drastic point, but we start off with physiotherapy. It's definitely the first thing that we have available to us at the ballet company. Some people have had arthroscopic knee surgery and been able to walk. It's so good nowadays, what they do.
How do you deal with the stresses of being a ballet dancer, especially with the anxiety of having to keep your weight down, that type of thing?
Oh, it's enormous. It's a constant challenge. I know meditation has been really helpful for stress release. Deep breathing has been really helpful. Choosing not to be angry when I find myself angry. That's been, just try to catch myself whenever I'm in a mode that is not helpful. And then sometimes I allow myself to just, I'll be miserable now, and nowadays I can accept that. Some doctors tell me that I heal about 3 times as fast as normal. And I think a lot of that comes from my participation. I believe that the body can't just be treated by a doctor. I think one has to be willing to heal. So I always take that approach of being my own doctor first. choosing to go see in my brain what has caused it, because I believe the body is an afterthought of the brain. So what has caused the injury? I explore that as much as possible, and then wish it well. And it's amazing how much it helps. And to not only wish myself well, but to be active within the treatment with doctors. I'll use certain techniques, what I call my godly healing powers, to bring it in with my breath. I will breathe in that white energy, that godly energy into the area that needs healing. And it's amazing how fast the body will respond once you put your mind to it.
Junzo Kokubo immigrated to North America in 1981 and became one of the first Japanese acupuncturists to practice in Toronto. In China, acupuncture is called Cha Zen, which means to stick a needle. I've always wanted to find out more, but I had to find out first if these things hurt.
No, acupuncture doesn't hurt, as long as you are in the hand of a well-trained acupuncturist. First of all, the acupuncture needle is very thin and smooth. Here are the samples of Chinese needles, and this is Japanese needles. As you can see, there's a quite difference. Japanese needle is much shorter and finer than Chinese needle. This is a guide tube, we call. The reason why we have to use guide tube is because of such a thin needle, we have to use guide tube to prevent its bending when inserting the needle.
Can you describe acupuncture?
Acupuncture is a medical treatment that developed in ancient China about 2,000 years ago, and eventually it spread to other Asian countries like Korea and Japan. In treatment, usually the needle is inserted or heat is applied on specific points on the skin or the surface of the body. These points are called the acupuncture point, which is supposed to be the spot where you try to regulate the energy flow. We call that energy is qi or qi. And then when the energy is flowing constantly or smoothly, you are fine, but you're healthy. And if you have the stagnation or blockage of energy flow, then you have a health problem. So acupuncture point is a spot where you try to regulate that energy flow by using or inserting needles or applying heat.
I remember when I first came and with this tendon problem,
yes.
That's all fine now. It's really not a problem at all. What I find more and more, though, is that because of the point shoes, that this bone is getting arthritic. I'm pretty sure of it. So I'm going to use a spacer to try to keep it in place. But if you could take a look at this area, it feels quite hot.
Now, how do you make a diagnosis?
Well, usually acupuncturists try to use 4 basic diagnostic techniques. One is questioning. The second is listening to say your voice or the tone of the voice. And then third is the palpation, that is touching your body. So with fingers, so you try to detect certain abnormal muscle tones, those things. And fourth is smelling. Certain smell can tell you what kind of problem the person has. Now I try to treat your specific problem you complain about. With blood flow gets better, and then the injured part in your case, the tissues can get more supply of blood, so it accelerates the healing process there. This meridian is called the gallbladder meridian. Meridian is invisible energy path. If there's a stagnation or energy flow or blockage, you have problems. So what we try to do is to restore that energy flow through the meridian. This area is a bit sensitive, so you might feel more, okay?
There was a little sting. bearable.
The toe area is so much nerve ending is concentrated.
Right. I do so much, so much abuse to my feet with the ballet shoes. Anyway, I think I can take a few pinpricks.
Okay, now I'll give a bit to Moxa. Okay. Here is Moxa. It's a spongy, fluffy stuff made from mangrove leaves. And they usually make a tiny cone like this by rolling between thumb and forefinger. And then place this on the acupuncture point and then ignite with the incense. And then just before it burns down completely to the skin, I just squeeze it away. So the patient feels a really comfortable sensation of heat. And this is excellent for blood circulation. Hot?
Not much.
Yeah.
What are some of the conditions that acupuncture is specifically used for?
People tend to think acupuncture is excellent for only pain relief, but it does much more than that. So many different type of ailments I treat. For example, migraine headache, stiff neck and shoulders, arthritis or tennis elbow, and then internal organs like common cold or asthma, a digestive problem like constipation or diarrhea.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that, as scary as it seems, that it doesn't hurt, because it is really beneficial, and it's not painful, which is hard to imagine with those needles sticking in, but that's such a great treatment.
Seven years ago, Susan McDonald found herself pretty close to death's door. Because Western medicine didn't have the answers, she investigated the world of alternative medicine. She's feeling a lot better now, and thanks to her study of the different healing modalities, she discovered aromatherapy.
Hi, Lois.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Susan, let's talk a little bit about the state of your health 7 years ago.
Well, about 7 years ago, I developed an autoimmune disorder, something that's very similar to lupus. Ended up with one of the best endocrinologists in Toronto. And he sat down with my husband and I and told me that I was probably going to die. I had always been a dabbler in herbalism and alternative whatever. I was a vegetarian and I didn't smoke and I didn't drink and I was on that stairway to heaven, And I thought this couldn't be happening to me. And we asked him, if there was things we could try. And he said that if I boosted up my immune system, that I was probably going to go faster. And at that point in time, I thought, what difference does it make, with this kind of quality of lifestyle? So we went on a little bit of a search. I enrolled in the Clayton School of Natural Medicine and took their course, and I became very strictly vegan. From there, I started to take Chinese herbals. I enrolled in the East-West Herbal course, and that one gave me a little bit more balance.
Can you describe your healing regimen at that time and how you're feeling now?
Well, at that point in time, I was resting a lot. And like I said, the major change was in the food intake. I did probably a 2-year cleanse, And as well as that, I was taking astragalus and reishi, a lot of different herbs that are meant to balance the immune system. We don't know much about balancing the immune system here in the Western philosophy. It's more like we purge and cleanse and do all kinds of other things, right? Well, I did some of that too, but I took a more gentle approach over time. And now I'm probably just as much of a balanced regimen as anybody else.
Can you talk a little bit more about the sense of smell and how that assists in the healing process?
Well, the sense of smell is attached to our limbic system, which is the oldest part of our body, right? And we've stopped using our sense of smell. We don't longer sniff out people to live with and things like that, right? Or at least not that we notice. But our sense of smell tells us when something is actually good for us and something is bad for us. And when I'm treating a client with aromatherapy, we go through all the scents that would be appropriate for them, and they pick the ones that smell the best to them, because your body still knows best, right? What's appropriate for you. Now, we always start off with the head because you relax almost like the engine first, where we have all of our thoughts. So, Shelley, we're just going to start off with your forehead. And hopefully kind of erase all the thoughts of the day.
Are there certain restrictions that apply with the use of essential oils?
Yeah, there are. If we were in Europe, essential oils would actually be prescribed. You could go to a pharmacist with a prescription, and he would give you an essential oil in a capsule that you would take right there in front of him, right? We don't do that here in Canada. Most doctors aren't really equipped or know enough about essential oils to do that. And I'm not able to do that. It's illegal in Canada. I mean, there's a couple of good reasons for that. Number one, you could probably kill somebody if they took enough essential oils, right? It's very hard on the liver, and they're not meant to be taken in large doses internally. At the same time, for our spastic colon now, they've got peppermint gels, which I actually sell here, which are encapsulated peppermint essential oil for irritable bowel syndrome.
Susan, do the oils work directly on the skin and penetrate?
No matter how much I apply to your skin, part of that evaporates very quickly because the essential oils are very volatile, and you're actually still getting most of the essence through your nose, right to your limbic system. Doesn't matter how I apply them to you. Anytime that you're working with essential oils, I'm breathing them too, and I probably get as much out of a treatment as the clients do, like really long term. And just from the scent itself. We can use aromatherapy for almost anything that you would use a medicinal for. There's really good essential oils for aches and pains, for bruising. Hyssop is really good for bruising. There's all kinds of different essential oils. Say we wanted to use a stimulant. You were wanting to study, right? And you're getting a little foggy. Well, and rosemary is very good. We just use a couple of drops of rosemary in a diffuser. It'll help you to keep your attention and your memory, maybe help you to be a little more cognizant of what you're doing. So lots of other ones that are just to mellow a room. Say you wanted to have a party and you wanted everybody to come in and be friendly, right? We might use rosewood and mix in a little bit of grapefruit or something else to enliven the energy. We have a sandalwood and basil blend, which we use for meditation because it just helps to mellow everybody out. Frankincense is used for meditation, but it's also a really good antibacterial and antifungal. Lavender is very good for burns. It's good for sunburns. It's good for burns. I keep it in my kitchen. We use it topically. It's good for bug bites and what have you. My husband got into a hornet's nest. He came running into the house yelling, "Where's the lavender?" Right? We just doused him down lavender. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to use lavender or tea tree, for a fungus or any kind of infection. These are things that we can pick up and we can use in our everyday lives. Most of these herbs have historical uses, which have been used for over years and years and years. And what we're finding now is that they're replacing or can be used as well as the medicines that we're using now that aren't working anymore. There's a lot of things that, the antibiotics and what have you aren't working for different bacteria. The essential oils still work.
The practice of Tai Chi in North America has brought together East and West, old and young, and in some centers, the able-bodied with the disabled. The Taoist form of Tai Chi that you're about to see has been specially modified, but its results have been striking for those who practice.
Taoist Tai Chi helps healing by allowing the body to heal itself. Taoist Tai Chi is very much like walking. It gets a person to turn to the right and turn to the left, but it exaggerates the movement in a way that the tendons get to stretch and the internal parts of the body get a really good workout. It's aerobic, it's mildly aerobic, it's a great stretch, it strengthens your muscles, it's weight bearing so it's good for your bones, it's done in a group so it helps you socialize and stay in touch, and it's fun.
One of the biggest problems I've found with the MS is muscle atrophy. If you don't use it, you lose it. With the Tai Chi exercises, I found it very beneficial in developing muscles that I thought were lost.
Lisa, I understand that you have MS.
Yes, I do.
How did you get involved with Taoist Tai Chi?
Actually, it was my occupational therapist that introduced it to me. I was using a walker, and basically, I'm walker-free right now. I train every day, work really hard at it, and it's just been an amazing journey.
MS is an illness that affects younger people. There's a preponderance of young women that are affected. These are people who have actually very young and soft tendons, but when they get the disease, they tend to stiffen up very quickly. And it's not so much because of the nerve problem involved, it's because of the balance problem that comes on when one part or the other doesn't function properly. And when one part doesn't function properly, it leads to everything else stiffening up as you tend to move less. With Taoist Tai Chi, you show people how to stand and move with balance. It allows them to stretch all the different parts out so everything feels looser and everything starts to get better.
With the regular exercise on a daily basis, it's incredible the way the muscles and the body recovers.
Have you noticed a difference in the exercises that you can do from 2 months ago?
2 months ago, I would have had trouble even just standing. Now, it definitely varies, but on a good day, I can take a few steps, which is a major improvement.
And why do you think it has worked so well for you?
Well, basically I fell in love with it right away. And it's an activity that I can do hours at a time and not end up in the hospital with an IV attached to my arm. Spiritually, it's motivated me. It's made me grow. I'm stronger physically. My legs are much stronger. My balance is better. And I don't use a cane and I don't use a walker right now. And I'm also instructing a little bit too.
When you're given a diagnosis that says to you, there's no medical cure for what you have, you just have to accept it, that's a crushing blow. And then when somebody says, you can help yourself through this very simple exercise by just letting the body heal itself, that raises up your spirit and gives you that sense that you are alive and that anything is possible.
We've all heard of auras, the energy field that surrounds us and all living things, including the Earth. Now there's a computer that can actually read the human aura. Lawrence Rothman shows us where technology meets, one of my favorite E-words, energy, in vibrant living color.
An aura is the belief that we have energy that not only emanates in our body, but it can't be contained within our physical body. It surrounds us. And each person, like a fingerprint, has a very distinct auric pattern. Everything has an aura.
How did you get the ability to see auras?
Well, it was pretty interesting. Actually, it was about 15 years ago. I was working as a traditional psychotherapist. And I started to see colors around people. And at first I thought I was going insane. There wasn't a lot of literature out on the market that talked about seeing auras or energy. And it wasn't until maybe a year or so after I started to see energy, I ran into someone that actually taught about the auric field. So I began to understand and integrate that into my traditional practice of psychotherapy, of working with the energy and seeing when there was imbalances in the person's auric field.
Have you ever had any bad experiences with reading people's auras?
And I remember this one time I was taking the train downtown and I was sitting and across from me I saw this older woman. She was standing and she had this buggy, like a grocery buggy. And I looked at her aura and she had almost no color, no energy moving from her. It was very strange. And I looked up the top of her head. She had this one string of energy. It was orange. And I couldn't understand, like, what would orange be doing coming out of the crown chakra, which is usually associated with white or purple. And I looked down in her buggy, and I saw maybe 20, 25 bottles of 222s, which is like aspirin with codeine in it. So my sense was this woman was medicating herself to death, and she was just hanging on to life by this one little thread. What we see here, the aura biofeedback machine, is actually sensors. Each one of these steel probes here is a sensor. It's picking up galvanic skin resistance or the electrical changes in the hand. We have a very low-grade electrical current that runs through our body. So each one of them is picking up energy through what's called reflex points. So each point is related to a pathway or energy pathway similar to the neurological information that runs through our body. So we're going to do the reading now, okay? I know you've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
So we're going to use the middle sensor here. And you're going to put your hand on it, cover all the sensors. Yeah, that looks good. Now we're going to take your other hand and we're going to press down nice and firm on it. And it's going to take a few moments for it to begin to pick up all your energy. And we're just going to let all these little boxes fill out, which are the specific areas of your body. So you got a beautiful energy field that's showing up, and we can see it on both monitors. So if we look, the first area that we can see, there's a lot of sort of a yellowish green. It's a beautiful bright yellow, so it's telling me that there's, a lot of vivaciousness, a lot of energy that's in your auric field right now. Yellow, again, it has a lot to do with taking in information. I've been sharing a lot with you, so you're taking in a lot of information, not only, emotionally, spiritually, but a lot of it mentally. The second one that we see is a tremendous amount of green. What I could tell you about yourself right away is you're a people person. You're easy to connect with. You share. But it's the capacity to give of oneself, to connect with people. A lot of times we see that with salespeople when they're able to reach out and connect with other people. We see a lot of green in the auric field. And you got blue, which is you're starting to open to all that beautiful, deeper spiritual energy. And not only is it blue, it's a turquoise color. We can see all those little bits through the auric field here. And the turquoise has a lot to do with communication, but also in the Native tradition, Native American tradition, turquoise is associated with healing. Now we want to look at and see how that looks like in your physical body. Now, what I'd like to see in the body is a lot of yellow, green, and blue. And what that's telling me is that the amount of energy that is moving through your body is balanced. If it was way over and it was a lot of red, it would be more slow. If it was way over and it was white, it'd be very fast. There'd be too much energy going on. So you got a nice even amount of energy, but you have some pockets. You got little bits of red. You can see in the feet and the knees, a little bit in the pelvis area, coming up into the stomach area. But what that's telling me is it's so light, and you can see it's fluffy and it's moving. It's not like being held. It's moving through you. It's some tiredness, it's some exhaustion.
I wonder why. Well, thanks for coming over today, Lawrence.
I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Dean Ornish has successfully challenged conventional science by saying that heart disease can be reversed without surgery or drugs. In fact, his lifestyle program has been underwritten by the American insurance industry. He reflects on the healthy heart in a classic E-moment.
Heart and blood vessel diseases still kill more Americans and Canadians each year than just about everything else combined. You can take all the cases of cancers of all types, AIDS, infectious diseases, murders, accidents, suicides, you name it. You lump them all together, and that's just about the number of people who die every year from heart and blood vessel diseases. And yet, if we simply put into practice what we already know, heart and blood vessel diseases could be virtually wiped out for 95% of people. We don't have to wait for a new drug, a new surgical technique, some new breakthrough. Your body has a remarkable capacity to begin healing itself if we give it a chance to. If 3, 4, 5 times a day you eat more fat and cholesterol than your body can get rid of, it has to go somewhere. It tends to build up in your arteries. If it's in your neck, you get a stroke. If it's in your heart, you get a heart attack. If it's in your legs, you get cramping or claudication in your legs. If you simply stop doing those things that are causing the problem, your body can often begin to heal itself. The same is true emotionally and even spiritually. The idea is that if you simply stop disturbing your own inner sense of peace and well-being, then you feel peaceful. It's not something that you get from outside yourself. So much of what I was trained to do as a doctor reinforces the misperception that your well-being, whether it's your emotional well-being or your physical well-being, is something that you get from outside you, whether it's from taking pills or having someone operate on you, or emotionally getting something you think is going to make you happy. One of the most dramatic examples of how much people can change was a man that I wrote about in my Reversing Heart Disease book named Dwayne Butler, who was a self-described redneck who had a lot of rage and anger and used to go around beating up people for fun. That was his way of expressing himself. And especially someone who was perceived as different, a different color, a different race, a different religion, especially a different sexual preference. He hated people who were gay. And one of the people in our study group was gay, and he had a real hard time with that. And then after a while in these support groups that we set up, where people are encouraged to talk about what they're really feeling,
what they began to realize, both of them, is that although they looked about as different from each other as they could possibly imagine, that the only thing that they seemed to have in common was they both had heart disease, that once you get past these differences and you really begin to talk about feelings and so on, you begin to realize that most people have thoughts and feelings, especially feelings that are very similar to each other. They have the same wishes and dreams and hopes and fears and anxieties that everyone has. And after a week of doing this in our first retreat, the man, the self-described redneck, went over to the gay man who was also a priest, gave him a hug, told him he loved him. Now, that was just in the course of a week. Throughout poetry and literature and art and religion, the heart has always been the symbol of not just the pump that pumps the blood in the body, but of compassion, of courage, of wisdom, of love, of spirituality, of altruism, of growth. I mean, all these things are feelings. Our emotional heart, our spiritual heart. These are all things that we talk about, and they're more than just words. There's a basis for that, and that's a basis that we're trying to explore, as well as the physical heart. They're not in any way mutually exclusive. There's not science versus art or spirituality. We're trying to find a way to blend them all together.
Everyone's journey is different, with many twists and turns along the way. We may never reach the same truth, but I hope Age of E will help shed some light on your individual path. I'm Lois Larimore. Please join me next time.